Okay. Hello everyone. This is pre-video, so imaginative. Really quickly before the video gets started, I wanted to talk about what is actually going on with this channel. I'll put a timestamp on the screen for when the video actually gets going. I want to really quickly insert this in here. I've done a post and I talk about it a bit at the end of the video, but I want to just sort of like actually get it out of my head really quick. And a lot of this is aimed at the people that watched the Alan Wake 2 video, the Resident Evil video, and then proceeded to see what on earth I was doing for the next several months. And I want to just kind of clarify things. So, the video you're about to watch is more of I guess, a gameplay commentary, not gameplay commentary, a games industry commentary sort of thing, where I'm actually talking about the company of Riot Games and sort of the state they're in. This is something I want to do more on the channel going forward, where I actually talk about how things are, reacting to certain things in the industry sort of thing, and giving a, I guess, layman's terms perspective on things, sort of be the middleman between someone that doesn't know what they're doing and someone that has too much information. I'm going to try and just sort of like give the context, give my thoughts, and sort of be the middleman for where things are going in the industry. It won't be everything. It'll be stuff I find interesting. It'll be stuff I think is relevant. And it will also be stuff I feel I can actually adequately explain. So that this is something I want to do more of, but that isn't necessarily all the channel is going to be. I do want to go back to doing what Alan Wake 2 and what Resident Evil was on the channel. So I think that the pitfall I fell into was I started doing trying to make like just typical review content, and that didn't really work for me. So I think a lot of why the Alan Wake 2 video and the Resident Evil video worked is because it was very specifically my experience. And the Resident Evil video it's not a normal video. I threw 4 games into there that aren't even chronological, I just chucked them in and I went on like my journey through Resident Evil, and I think that was the big appeal of the video. And so I want to do more stuff like that. But basically after that I went on this whole period of kind of feeling like my videos were pointless. So I made a few review-esque videos after that. I think like 2. I remember the Silent Hill one, and I feel like that was something else. But they just weren't that interesting because I was just talking about a game that had just come out, and it wasn't even a particularly interesting viewpoint on it. Even then, they were pretty niche things, so they didn't go very far. But the fucking Paladins video I did way back, like when I started, even that did better. Like that has 500 views on it because at least I'm talking like emphatically about it. And I'm at least saying stuff that should remotely be interesting and not just reviewing it. I think I got caught in my own head about having to make videos on things. I was in the middle of making a video on Space Marine 2, and it takes me a while to edit things, partly because my computer's slow and because I have bad focus when it comes to doing laborious things. And by the time my video was even starting to get edited, everyone else's videos were coming out, and they were literally saying the same shit I was. I watched Bricky, right? And Bricky did his Space Marine 2 video, and there were so many things in his script that I literally said one for one, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And so I've been trying to like figure out what it is I'm trying to do. And I think basically the issue is that I need an outlet for smaller scale creativity, because doing stuff like the Resident Evil video, it took months. It took me months to edit that together. It took me months to play it. I was playing games from late December until I think early February. So pretty much the whole month of January I was playing Resident Evil stuff. Then I had to write the script and edit it, and it was a pretty big process, and I wasn't especially good at things back then. I've learned quite a lot about how to do this since then. So it was a pretty rough process, and I need something to sort of get out of my system that's quicker and I can validate myself with a bit faster. And that's sort of what led to the Zelda video. Zelda was not a great game to do that on. The idea was using gameplay to show a concept instead of talking about it, because doing the scripting and the recording and the talking is a lot of what makes my videos take so long, especially when I do it in front of a green screen. Because there are certain factors that means that takes longer than it should. But the idea was I could do a small bit of talking at the start and just use the gameplay to show the rest. The problem was Echoes of Wisdom is not a particularly exciting game to watch, for one thing, and it's something that most people are just going to play by themselves. They're not going to want to watch people play that. So I think for some things that could work, especially if it's like updates for a game. I think that could work pretty well, but not for Zelda, and I think that was a terrible idea. I do not want anyone to think that is something that I'm going to be going straight into. That's not like what this channel is now. It might pop up every now and again, but it's not what I'm going to be doing by default. Instead, I managed to finally fix the problem of what I can use to do like quicker scale creativity, which is streaming. I've started streaming again. There was a lot that held me back from streaming over the last like 2 years or something stupid, namely my internet connection. But circumstances have changed, which means I can run a 60-foot Ethernet cable through my house, and now I can stream. so I'm back to streaming. Just this morning, this afternoon, I streamed 2 p.m. UK time. Just this afternoon, I played through the Sonic half of Sonic Shadow Generations for the first time. That will be a video because I actually have some things to say on why I haven't had an interest in Sonic before and why this has tempted me. I think things will change on the channel. Again, I think they will finally calm the fuck down though. I don't think every video will be me trying something. I think the style will come back, and yeah. So the general plan right now is this Riot Games video I'm doing, where is obviously this one right here, and this will be a style of content that will probably come back again. But generally speaking, I'm going back to what I think made the Alan Wake 2 and Resident Evil videos work. And so after this, there's going to be a video on Sonic Shadow Generations, and then after that should be the next Resident Evil video. I'm finally going back to that. It took me a while, but I finally know how I'm going to do the rest of the Resident Evil videos, namely because of the GOG release, if you know what I'm talking about. That should give a little hint. I've played 3 playthroughs of of 2 on the original Resident Evil 1 and 1 on the remaster. I just need to play the other half of the remaster and I can get going on the video. So that is coming up hopefully sooner rather than later. So I'm sorry this has taken me a lot longer than I thought it would, but that's sort of the update. That's sort of where the channel's going, where it's been these past couple months, and I think things are going to stabilize, and I hope you will stick around, because I'd like to make this work if I can, and that would be pretty damn cool. So I hope you enjoy this video. Do let me know what you think, because I do want to do more of this kind of stuff, but style-wise, more than happy to accept critique. So yeah, let me know. Enjoy the video. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada, because I don't think I said that in the video, Lamau. And enjoy. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. So Imaginative, and today I'd like to give Riot Games a little health checkup. Make sure that foot rash isn't spreading too fast, because they've been up to some real shenanigans recently. I don't imagine Riot needs much of an introduction. They're only one of the biggest game companies on the planet, having developed 2 of the world's most cozy video games, League of Legends and Valorant, 2 of our biggest don't turn left moments, but here we are having turned left, and Riot has become quite the powerhouse, and Runeterra is no longer limited to the Summoner's Rift. However, there have been some business decisions, especially recently, that have come across a touch problematic, and that is how we find ourselves here today. But first, let's set some context. Riot Games was pretty exclusively MOBA coded until about 2019, with League's 10th anniversary. Thus began Riot's great expansion. Following the release of the auto chess mode Teamfight Tactics earlier that year, Riot announced a great many things to celebrate the anniversary. In the same video, we got the reveals for Wild Rift, the League of Legends mobile port, Project A, which would later become Valorant, Legends of Runeterra, the digital card game, and Arcane, in the same video in that order. I can't find the exact date, but it was around this time that we also got our first looks at Project L, now 2XKO, and Project F, which seemed to be an ARPG, which has been pretty radio silent since, though apparently not dead, according to one Netcrit video I've watched. There was also the announcement of Riot Forge, which was the name given to games developed outside of Riot in cooperation, that's the word, with outside developers. This led to games like Ruined King by Airship Syndicate and The Mage Seeker from Digital Sun. Obviously these plans did not come out of nowhere, they were most likely in the works for literal years. But in a relatively short space of time, Riot Games went from managing just League of Legends to a slew of expansive projects, many of which would require persistent development teams, as well as liaising with other studios. They're even developing an MMO within the world of Runeterra, that we won't see for at least a decade. In overall terms, this was an immensely successful move by Riot. Most of their in-house releases garnered a fairly substantial community, and Valorant specifically managed to label itself as competition to Counter-Strike with a professional scene to match. The games produced under Riot Forge were relatively well received and seen fondly by the community for their creativity, variety, and offering ways to engage with these characters that you cannot get in any way from the main game League of Legends. Even League, the absolute powder keg that it can be, seems to have been experiencing a pretty good streak from what I can tell. To this day, this phase of expansion still holds great promise for Riot, with 2xKO looking to be a massive release for fighting games, and the promise of the MMO being quite tantalizing. Unfortunately, I have started from this high point because we need a place to come down from. Riot's vision may have been a bit bigger than their office space, and when you're looking at those announcements from the 10th anniversary, there's a pretty clear line between what worked and what didn't. League itself continued mostly unabated, but it always does, and we'll circle back around to that. Valorant has since grown into a major esport with a consistent seasonal model, though I reckon it probably helps that it is the only one that doesn't, eat off of Runeterra. TFT has found its niche, and somehow Arcane managed to lose an award to Marvel's What If, which should be considered a war crime, and anyone who made that happen, you are on my list. In many ways, this is where the good news sort of ends. Roughly a year ago now, the games industry saw an unprecedented wave of layoffs through just about every major studio in the scene, and in January of this year, Riot joined suit, laying off about 10+% of their staff. This makes talking about projects like Legends of Runeterra a bit more complicated, and is where we start to see the impact of Riot's decisions post the 10-year anniversary. Legends of Runeterra, or Lore as it was known, was framed in a similar fashion to most computer card games, but it had that signature Riot touch, which in this case was reasonable progression. The ability to, technically speaking, acquire all you need in-game through just time, whatever precious hours we have left on this earth. Truthfully, Lore is a very fun game. I've played a decent amount of it myself, and it was constantly innovating with new archetypes that fit the characters pretty damn well. But there is a reason most card games are slightly similar to a scam. They don't reach the widest audience, and to keep up with a competitive scene that is ever shifting and often relies on the newest released cards takes pretty serious commitment and often cost, especially when the gameplay loop is simply putting cards on a board. I play enough TCGs to know that's not actually that simple, but that is basically what it boils down to. It's also important to note that somewhere along the line, they added the Path of Champions game mode, which was a PvE experience that's more similar to a deck building roguelike. It's got leveling and modifiers and a constant sense of progression. When I go back to Legends of Runeterra, it's to play Path of Champions, that is important. Back in January, we learned that Lore was at no point actually making money, and was entirely pulled along by the profits of other Riot titles. Compound this with the layoffs and the game was scaled back accordingly. The game would now focus on Path of Champions, which was seemingly the more popular game mode as opposed to just shutting down altogether, which I will give Riot credit for, because let's be honest, most producers these days would have axed it mid-sneeze. Riot Forge was also announced to be closing at the same time, to a veritable wave of sadness. 5 games were released through Riot Forge between 2019 and the start of 2024, with one final game, Bandle Tale, an adorable Yordle farming sim, being released after the closing announcement. It was a similar story to Legends of Runeterra. Between the layoffs and the Forge titles not being especially lucrative, Riot was positioning to refocus on their higher impact titles, such as League and Valorant. It's at about this point, for me personally, that it starts to feel like we're losing the soul of League of Legends and Riot Games as a company. I've played League for a long time, but not very consistently. I normally play because of my friends, because, let's be honest, Summoner's Rift is a cesspit at the best of times. But I love the world. I love Runeterra. It's a fantastically designed work of fiction that does an incredible job with its diverse regions and telling stories through those diverse regions and characters. And this expansion was meant to improve upon that, was meant to extend their ability to tell these stories into other mediums. But so far it has felt sort of like a net loss. Events and storylines inside of League of Legends itself have stopped getting the really good treatment they used to have. Short stories are gone, and there's now not really a replacement for them. And even the characters themselves have become more standardized for mass appeal. A lot of these things are a natural sign of a growing business, but when you start to lose the things that were being replaced, well, it just sucks. The whole thing just sucks. This is what I mean when I say League continued mostly unabated. It kept going despite some issues, and all the core parts suffered from relatively few setbacks, though some of the updates felt empty around this point. I like Riot as a company, generally speaking, especially more than most developers of their size. They're very openly communicative, they do try to fix problems, even if it does take them a while, and they come across as people that genuinely care. But sometimes the business side of what they're doing can come across as very greedy, whether it's being owned by Tencent, or just the fact that Riot can make that kind of money now, so they have to try, I can't say. Either way, that's most of the context. That catches us up to the modern day, and now we can talk about a lot of the stuff that has twisted everybody's knickers recently. At the end of 2023, Riot released a dev blog talking about luxury goods in their business model, and this is where all the current BS comes from. On paper, there's nothing wrong with it. It's the idea of selling fancy cosmetics for a higher price point should you wish to purchase it. The problem is very much in the implementation, and the growing sense that Riot is literally putting their hand in your pocket. You do not hold your wallet, Riot holds it for you. It started in August of 2023 with the concept of Mythic variants. Mythic relates to a higher tier of cosmetic content within League. At all times, there is a Mythic shop open with a rotating inventory that you can purchase with Mythic Essence, which is a pain in the neck to get. Since it came out, I've accumulated 90. Again, I don't play that much. But because of the inclusion of this shop, Riot has made the point that their higher tier cosmetics have become too accessible and they need more exclusivity. Introducing Dark Cosmic Erasure Djinn. Dark Cosmic Erasure Djinn is a variant of the very previously released Dark Cosmic Djinn skin with an updated colour palette and some changed visual effects. But if we really get to the crux of the matter, it's a glorified chroma, which is League's term for a palette swap. The most significant change is easily the swap from a dark blue purpley colour palette to one focused more on reds. Everything outside of that is largely superficial. You've got stuff like an exploding rock effect added to his fourth shot, and this planet has been destroyed in the image curated by his ultimate. But it certainly doesn't justify £200. Had I mentioned that yet? To obtain Dark Cosmic Erasure Djinn, a name I'm going to keep saying to really drill in how stupid it is, you had to go through a capsule system, which you may recognise if Hoyoverse knows your bank details. It's a scaled back gacha system, basically with a 1% chance of the skin appearing. To be guaranteed to hit the pull, you have to put in 22,500 RP, League's premium currency, which is how you get to calling it a £200 skin. Now you don't just get the skin, you get a new splash art, though I've heard it's unused splash art from the original skin, an icon and a border, so yeah, that doesn't really make any better, does it? This might have been a touch more palatable for a skin that really pushed the limits, which is foreshadowing, but certainly not for what is barely a level up from a chroma, the average price of which is 290 RP, or a fiver, noticeably less than 3 figures. This fun little trend kicked back in at the end of May this year with immortalized legend Ari. The backstory for this one is the newly established Hall of Legends was going to start by inducting Faker, one of the most prolific League of Legends players of all time, and they were releasing this skin to celebrate. The skin was released in 3 different tiers and got fancier as you went up the tiers, but all 3 versions of this skin were only purchasable through the accompanying bundle. The bundles were priced at 5,430 RP, 32,430 RP, and 59,260 RP. That last one comes out at about a crisp 500. Bear in mind that while it is a bundle, the main attraction is most certainly the skin. For a digital character in a free-to-play game, there's making money and then there's whatever this is. This brings us up to, at the time of recording, last week, or the 16th of October, in the year of our Lord 2024. Arcane Season 2 is on the way, and with a pretty big drive in hype, and just like with Season 1, Riot's other properties are looking to collaborate and capitalise. One way League of Legends is doing this is with new Arcane-themed skins, which is naturally going to be one for Jinx, but little did we know that she would be shooting us with the rocket this time. The Jinx skin is coming under a new tier that they're labelling Exalted, which will let teams cook, pushing design and tech capabilities to make the best skin possible for each champion's unique fantasy. That is almost word for word from the blog. Now we'll get to the really problematic part in a second, but there's a really important piece of missing context here, and that's that these are just ultimate skins. Ultimate skins were designed with the same purpose, typically having multiple forms and new visual effects as the Jinx skin will, but there were only a handful of them within the game, and at highest they were priced at 3,250 RP, which is roughly £25, which isn't cheap, but that was the point. However, the last Ultimate was Soul Fighter Samira, a skin that Riot caught a lot of flack over as it didn't really meet the standards for an Ultimate skin, and thus was not worth the cost. That skin was back in June-July of 2023, and now Riot seems to be replacing the concept entirely with the Exalted skins for a very clear reason. Gatcha. Literally. It is stated within the blog that Exalted skins are meant for players who want hyper-exclusive skins, and they mean it. Exalted skins are obtained through the Sanctum, where you will spend a new kind of currency called Ancient Sparks, which are summon tickets for 400 RP each, which there is no amount for, so you have to spend £5, and they don't expire, so you can save them for future pulls. Rolling banners. It even has a pity system, guaranteeing the skin within 80 pulls, which I'm sure is a number they've basically pulled from a Hoyoverse game. This puts, in their words, your maximum investment at 32,000 RP. What a nice round number, aiming a gun at my bank account. It's roughly £250. They even have this chart. At a glance, this looks like the chart that comes up when you click more information for the chances in Star Rail. As far as I am aware, would be happy to be wrong about this bit, but as far as I'm aware, unlike Hoyoverse Gacha games, which really ride the line of how predatory they can be, there is no way to earn these Ancient Sparks. It's purely aimed at people with money, at the whales of the League community. It should also be said that these skins will not be entering the reroll pool to protect their exclusivity. For the uninitiated, you do get rewarded, generally speaking, for playing League of Legends. You get skin shards occasionally, and you can reroll 3 of the ones you don't want for a skin that you might want that is more to your tastes, and you won't have to pay for it. Exalted skins will at no point enter this reroll pool, alongside future mythic variants, because they promised the Dark Cosmic Erasure Jin would, which I'm sure they're regretting right about now. And just to really pour some salt in the wound, this announcement came roughly 24 hours after Riot laid off more staff. This layoff seemed less intense as a result of structure, not finance. It also seems to have been aimed at the visual and design side of things, such as the skins team. I don't know if the literal people that designed Exalted Jinx were fired, but if they were, ooh, that's bad. Apparently these announcements weren't coordinated either, they just happened that way, which is... how? The Dark Cosmic Erasure Jin incident may have been in August of last year, but these events are getting more egregious and they're becoming more consistent, which is making me quite fearful for the future of Riot. This isn't necessarily a League of Legends specific issue either. The Gatcha system has become quite rooted in TFT. Valorant's pricing model has been absolutely nuts since the start, I dare you to look at those, and 2xKO, which will be free to play, will be selling cosmetics at a yet unknown price point, and I don't even want to know. Like I said earlier, I do like Riot as a company. I think the reason I like Riot as a company is still there. It's an incredibly passionate team, a really good design philosophy, generally speaking, and some of the best community relations at that level of development. But it feels like they're pushing it more and more every year, and I am certainly not a fan of that. But that's the gist of the situation. The greedy notes behind the Exalted announcement with the layoffs was extremely poorly timed, and made a pair of quite bad announcements so much worse. It just felt so perfectly timed with like the last year of Riot's activities, as well as where recent history has sort of placed them, that I couldn't resist trying to put this into a cohesive video for people that aren't quite in the know, so I hope you enjoyed it. There's likely to be more of this stuff on the channel going forward, but time will tell. I'm back to streaming as well at the moment. It is most days from 2 PM UK time over at twitch.tv/theimaginative. There's a link somewhere. And there's a second channel where I'm dumping stuff from stream if you want to check it out. I just uploaded my playthrough of the Alan Wake 2 DLC, The Lake House, that came out yesterday. Next video should be Sonic X Shadow Generations. I'm taking the angle of I've been a hater for most of my life and I want to give it a proper shot, so we'll see how that goes. And then Resident Evil is finally coming back after way too long, so I will see you then.